Battleships are the reason I started playing this game. I thought having big giant guns hitting people really hard would be incredibly fun and interesting. And I still think that. Battleships are one of my favorite parts of this game. But that said, I really hate them sometimes. I love them, but I also hate them. And that can happen in the exact same game, and certainly happens in different matches. Sometimes you can take a range mod Vermont, pop a spotter plane, and dev strike a booster across the map. That can happen. And other times, you can do basically no damage to that same cruiser at 10 kilometers flat broadside. That is the love-hate that I have with battleships, and I think Vermont is the most extreme example of this, where it would be flat out overpowered if you got these kind of salvos all the time, right? A destroyer that is on pretty good HP, suddenly we take 17,000 damage off his HP bar and he dies. Right? That is the absolute power of the Vermont. It is this insane alpha damage, and I think it's great. Honestly, I would want it to be more consistent when dealing with people who make mistakes. Pushing out of middle on two brothers, I think I'd call that a mistake, and reasonable to say if you push out going flat broadside to a Vermont at close range, you should probably deserve to die. That just seems like a way to reinforce the idea that angling is the way to do things. You don't want to expose the most vulnerable part of your ship to another battleship at close range. Again, we're using the special ability of the American commanders to swap to the HE and nuke a destroyer at close range. It's very nice. Not all battleships can use this special ability though, the improved expert loader. It's not everywhere, and that's disappointing since you are incentivized to swap to HE some of the time when you're in a battleship. Not all the time, but that's a different video, let's say. Vermont, of course, has the major weakness of a 40-second reload. It gets us killed here, where we might have been able to trade with the Schlieffen in a different battleship, since we would have had our guns loaded in time for him to come around the corner. And that's the frustration of Vermont. It's the 40-second reload between shots. It's incredibly punishing for missing your shot. However, it feels really bad when you aim pretty well and you don't get rewarded for it. And that is why Vermont is the best showcase of my love-hate relationship with battleships in this game. It's the absolute devastating firepower that seems just disgustingly overpowered when RNG cooperates and you aim well and everything goes right, contrasted with the horrible feeling of either missing your shot with poor aim or random RNG takes over and decides to say, no, you didn't actually aim well on that broadside Montana. It's really frustrating, and you have 40 seconds then to sit there and think about it. That's why I tend to try and turn my brain off when I'm playing these battleships, especially the Vermont, because if I sit there and really consider, did I aim well, try and really logically puzzle it out, I just find myself getting more and more frustrated. That Montana, of course, had the same feeling since he caught us broadside and did essentially no damage back to us. I think that improving dispersion, improving consistency of battleships while reducing the absolute alpha damage that you could put out with one of these ships would be interesting. I'm not sure if that would fix anything. It probably would make things worse in some ways, but for me personally, I would enjoy feeling like I'm more consistently able to do damage and know what a ship is and is not capable of. It's difficult to make plays and make decisions in a game when your ship can absolutely dev strike people off the map over and over and over again, or it can do essentially no damage, depending on random chance. That's the frustrating thing for me. It's difficult to impact the game and decide to make a push or to hold a flank or to hold a position when you don't know what your ship is going to be capable of the next time you pull the trigger. Sometimes you're going to do no damage, and sometimes you're going to barely get a glimpse of a broadside, and you'll take a quarter, half, or even the full HP bar of someone. Like this Kurfurst, for example, he's not even flat broadside right now. He's showing us, well, nearly a 60-degree angle, which is enough to get full pens for sure and do a lot of damage, but it isn't always the case. And maybe that's just me expecting too much consistency out of this class and overthinking the game a little bit too much. But I think that's where my competitive side or my logical side comes in and says, well, how is it fair that this Kurfurst took, 17,000 damage completely angled to us? And this is where he's supposed to be at his strongest, right? A Kurfurst in a brawl, of course, should be scary, and yet all you got to do is aim up into that superstructure, and you're nearly guaranteed full pens. This guy was on more than half HP, and he's going to be dead very soon. Of course, we do have to mention that our entire team is essentially shooting him. Not the best push by him, but it still doesn't help that we got a 17k salvo initially, and then in our next salvo, what are we going to do? Another 15,000 damage, 16,000 damage? That is a little bit too much against an angled ship, I'd say. I'd love to see reduced damage when you're angled and more damage when you're broadside. If that's something that you're also feeling when you're playing this game, I definitely recommend branching out from battleships. That's why I've been playing a lot more cruisers and destroyers recently. That consistency, and even some of the alpha damage and devastating strike ability of some of the destroyers and cruisers in the game is more consistent than battleships. Even though you're not getting those big meaty salvos all the time, you get into the right situation, a ship can do some serious damage, like a Des Moines at close range, or getting on a flank in a Shima, that kind of thing, can give you that devastating firepower. I think that battleships are probably fine exactly how they are. I'm just someone who gets frustrated by the inconsistencies and randomness. I understand that they are necessary for a class that can do so much so quickly in a single salvo, but it certainly hurts when those big salvos don't happen and then you're just a sitting duck for an extended period of time. Even in a full game, being useless and a sitting duck. Like this one here, where we're 15 minutes into this match and I've done 54,000 damage. Yeah, this was maybe the match that inspired this video. It was so boring though, I really couldn't include too much of it into the video. And of course, we got to end it off in the perfect way for a very frustrating experience. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I really do think battleships are pretty good in this game, but they get frustrating some of the times. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.